freedom to lead.
All right, it's a beautiful, beautiful morning right here from the capital city of Nigeria, where our signals are radiating from. Of course, if you're just joining us and if you don't know where this is, well, let me introduce us. This is TOS TV Network, your digital first Pan-African network. And this show, we call it The Conversation. I am Nkamion John, and I have the honor and the pleasure to have a very delectable partner. Everybody's like having, what's the word now? Yeah, like head over heels over her. So I've got plenty of competition, right? Yeah, plenty. You can't blame me. She is here, always with me on the show, Stephanie Odia.
Hi, John. Listening to the way you introduce me every day is like, oh my God, I mean, well, what's this now? Another new introduction, or?
Trying to keep up with the competition, trying to keep up with the competition.
Oh, thank you so much. And it feels great always doing this by your side.
It's always lovely to have you by my side.
Yeah.
All right, this morning on The Conversation, like every morning, we will do our best to keep you informed, up to speed, entertain, and ensure that you get all the juicy details as far as what is happening, where it's happening, when it happened, as far as our beautiful continent of Africa is concerned. In just a moment, we'll take a quick breather. Give us a few minutes to take a sip of our tea, and then when we come back, we'll take you through the latest developments as far as Africa is concerned, all the way from Kenya down through South Africa, and finally end up back home in Nigeria, where I think the biggest story making the trends is Friday's events in Kankara, Katsina State. In fact, while I was waiting on the montage to finish playing, I came across a headline showing pictures of Nigeria's president, Muhammadu Buhari, actually inspecting his cows in Daura. And the caption read, President inspecting his cows while children have been kidnapped in Kankara. Very strong headlines. But all of that in just a moment. So let's take a break and we'll be right back.
TOS TV Network mobile app is now available. You can now catch up on our breaking news, stream our programs live, watch out for the latest update on sports and politics as they unfold. You can also get notifications for our upcoming programs and events. All these on our TOS TV Network mobile app, available on Apple Store and Google Play Store. TOS TV News from Africa by Africans.
Being a journalist means in-depth analysis that unravels hidden truths, that question the status quo and fact-checks government.
These criminal elements hiding under the cloak of surveillance contractors are the APC elements.
Do you have facts to prove that? Being a journalist means waking up every day with a burning desire for peace, equity, and justice for all citizens.
We're being told that the choice you have is to take the lesser of two evils.
It means patriotism via the prison of objectivity and accountability. It means giving my platform to the masses to discuss issues that matter to them.
Some of them, if they bring budget, and the budget they look. Some they sleep. They're going to ask how much we are on. I have it.
Thereby shaping government policies and laws. My name is Osasu Igbeneghu, and I am the People's Journalist.
All right, it's still The Conversation coming to you via the signals of TOS TV Network, your digital first Pan-African network. And I have to say this, we are live and interactive. Yeah, so all you need to do to be part of the show, follow all the developments as far as the conversation is concerned, is just by following and liking TOS TV Network on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Well, that's right. You could always be a part of the show. Follow us on social media at TOS TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, you could also visit the website www.tostvnetwork.com for more.
And don't forget, we are also trending and streaming all the major stories across Africa. So if you want to know the latest update, remember, just click on www.tostvnetwork.com and you get all the latest gist as far as Africa is concerned. And that sets the tone for what as we jump into developments as far as Africa is concerned this Tuesday, where COVID-19 remains a major as far as the continent of Africa is concerned. Now, Kenya has ordered 24 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine, the Star newspaper has reported, citing Kenya's health ministry officials. Now, the Kenyan government will spend about 10 billion Kenyan shillings, that's approximately 89 million US dollars for the vaccines, according to the newspaper. And the ministry submitted its request to the Global Vaccine Alliance Initiative, GAVID, last week, according to the report. Now, this will be enough to cover at least 20% of the country's population.
Well, that's very good. You know, Kenya there, at least one positive thing coming from Kenya, of course, because looking at the other news, it's not going so well for them with Somalia. But saying this, well, let's see how it goes.
And talking about Somalia, well, the latest happenings between Kenya and Somalia is the fact that the federal government of Somalia has cut diplomatic ties with neighboring Kenya. Now, this tension has been building up in close to 2 weeks, if I guess correctly, because I remember about a week ago, if not upper week, we brought you developments where Somalia had sent home the Kenyan ambassador and called back its ambassador from Nairobi, and it cited Kenya's interference in its political affairs for reasons of the recent tension between Somalia and Kenya. Well, it has recalled all its diplomats, not just its ambassador, but all its diplomats from Nairobi, and giving Kenyan diplomats in Mogadishu 7 days to leave the country. The announcement was made by the Ministry of Information, and this is the information they put out. I quote, "The Somali government, based on its national sovereignty guaranteed by international law and order, and fulfilling its constitutional duty to safeguard the nation, unity and stability of the country, has decided to sever diplomatic relations with the Kenyan government," it said. That's the statement from the Ministry of Information in Somalia. The decision comes after Somalia submitted a letter of protest against Kenya to Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, who is also chair of the Regional Bloc Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD. That's the bloc that controls, just like you have ECOWAS for West African states, they have IGAD for states within the southeastern region of Africa. So Somalia recently accused Kenya of meddling in its internal affairs, as I mentioned earlier. So this is, we're glad that somewhat the crisis between Ethiopia and Tigray has somewhat, gone down, but now there is rising tension between Kenya and Somalia. Now, Somalia, surprisingly, is one country that you would expect that shouldn't be ready to go to arms at every point in time. There should be some kind of diplomatic resolution to whatever interference they claim Kenya has interfered or meddled in their internal affairs.
Given that, I understand every country has got sovereignty and there's need for that to be respected. Also, looking at the tensioned relationship between Kenya and Somalia, as you rightly said, a lot has been going on in Somalia for years now. They've been plagued by civil war, and as it stands, the country is still recovering, okay?
And that's
from
the more
the
reason why
aftermath effect
I
of the
wonder
long
why they shouldn't be thinking of the diplomatic part.
Well, at this
Or the
point,
part of
Somalia should
diplomacy.
be thinking of, more having healthy relationships with other countries because, well, they need to, pick up from where they left off before the civil war. A lot has to be done in the country. So Somalia has to, focus on building strong relationships, strong ties with neighboring African countries, and not about cutting diplomatic ties with Kenya. Because, as you rightly mentioned, not at this time.
At this point, again, controversial in Kamian speaks, I borrow from the wisdom of our fathers that says, we are all brothers. It is better to be our brother's keeper rather than to be our enemy's keeper. The thing about following diplomatic ties, we may not be able to do diplomacy in the way that the whites or the Western Hemisphere does diplomacy. But if we domesticate or localize our diplomacy part or part of diplomatic ties, we just might be able to resolve issues a lot better than we are. Because, whether we like it or not.
We have a lot in common as
Exactly.
That is our strength.
Exactly.
So negotiation should never be off the table.
Good point. All right, still back to developments across Africa. We did tell you that COVID-19 is a major. Right now, it's on the front burner as far as Africa is concerned. We did give you the update from Kenya, where they have purchased about 24 million vaccines just to cover about 20% of their citizenry. Well, South Africa has announced new restrictions to try to contain a second wave of COVID-19. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa said a sharp rise in new infections was a cause for great concern as he announced plans to close some beaches and limit mass gatherings over the holiday period. Now, the nation's teenagers are being blamed for fueling a second wave of infections with crowded, drunken parties. African youths, take a cue. Take a cue. And please, remember, take responsibility, okay? Not just for yourself, for everyone else, all right? Now, President Ramaphosa said nearly 1,000 young people had tested positive for the coronavirus just after just one day-long beach party, just a day, and coronavirus infections spiked, Now, in response, he said beaches in several provinces, but not those around Cape Town, would be shut during the holidays. A longer curfew from 2300 to 0400 local time would also come into force. Numbers at social gatherings will be capped at 100 people per indoor event and 250 people at any outdoor event. All post-funeral gatherings will be prohibited. Alcohol sales will now only be allowed between 10 and 1800 hours local time from Monday to Thursday. President Ramaphosa warned that the second wave could prove to be more deadlier than the first if people fail to behave responsibly. But the government is reluctant to take tougher steps that could further threaten the country's precarious economy. Don't forget, I think it was last week where we brought you news that South Africa's economy had improved by a certain percentage. And I think under the watch of President Cyril Ramaphosa, he's doing everything possible to ensure that rather than the economy dip, it remains on a constant, growth, especially going into 2021.
Again, I would say, as an individual and as an African, also, of course, all over the world, take responsibility for yourself and for people around you. I understand what was still in COVID-19, of course, still a global pandemic as we discussed right now, but then people are tired of being locked down in their homes and wherever, and then they want to let out and party. But then, talking about the second wave of the virus, because vaccines are available, but until they get to your homeland, you need to be careful.
I'm glad you said that, because I think people are being reckless simply because they think there's a vaccine.
At the point where we are now, we can't guarantee a surplus supply. Okay, because over there where the vaccines were manufactured, you could see how they're rolling it out in bits by bits. Okay, so
besides, we've been told that Africa may not get its vaccines
early 2021.
Exactly.
Right? So, well, we have to take responsibility for ourselves.
True, true. And coming down to Nigeria, yes, I did tell you at the start of the show, the biggest story as far as Nigeria is concerned is the developing story, let me put it that way, that started Friday in Kankara, Katsina State, northwest Nigeria. Well, Boko Haram has said it was behind the kidnapping of hundreds of schoolboys in Nigeria's northwestern Katsina State, hinting at the group's continued expansive and deadly reach in recent weeks. Now, the private Daily Nigeria website has reported that at least hundreds of schoolboys at the government science secondary school, Kankara in Katsina State, are still missing in the wake of the Friday night attack. Now, according to Daily Nigerian, Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau said in a 4-minute audio message that his group carried out the attack. And this is what he said, I quote, "Because Western education is against the tenets of Islam, what happened in Katsina was done to promote Islam and discourage un-Islamic practices, as Western education is not the type of education permitted by Allah and His Holy Prophet." The website quoted Shekau as saying. Now, the site said that Shekau did not give details about the attack, the number of schoolboys adopted, or confirmed reports of negotiations with the Nigerian government.
You know, you just took the words out of my mouth again, John, because I have seen this news. Of course, this happened between the hours of yesterday and early hours of today. And looking at this report, the fact that Shekau didn't give details of the total number of schoolboys abducted, and also negotiations with the government, because news made the rounds yesterday that the unknown gunmen that actually kidnapped these boys had begun negotiation. So we were told to stand by, stand down, of course, borrowing the words of Donald Trump, that the government would definitely get to the end of this. And we also did see reports coming that the Nigerian military has located or has trailed to a certain location what could seem as though evidence or, relatively, would I say, clues of this unknown gunmen that abducted these schoolboys. So a whole lot is coming out of this story, and I like that we know this is a developing story. We're yet to see more. Of course, we're yet to see reactions from the presidency, and we're yet to see further statement from the Nigerian military. But whatever this is, I hope that these boys are brought back home safe and sound. All of them, not some of them.
Well, we do hope that we do not see a lingering back and forth as far as the safety of these boys are concerned. As a follow-up, the military spokesman, Major General John Eneche, my namesake, has reacted, and he termed, he didn't refer to the abductors as Boko Haram. He plainly called them criminals. So right now, there's still a lot that is sketchy. Of course, there are certain reports that suggest that Boko Haram wants to take credit. It may not be a Boko Haram group that truly adopted the boys,
right,
but the Boko Haram would want to take credit, because naturally terrorist groups do that to keep themselves relevant and, to keep their profiles consistently on a high. So it may not necessarily be a sect of Boko Haram. And let's not forget that security reports suggest that within the northwestern part of Nigeria, what you have are more of kidnappings, carried out by
bandits,
by syndicates. You understand? So it may just be one of those syndicates that has carried out this act, and the Boko Haram just want to take credit for it, since the group itself has not come out to say we did this. So Boko Haram says, you know what, let's claim credit for it.
That's
and remain
right.
relevant, as far as insurgency and terrorism in Nigeria is concerned. So that just might be the case.
Well said.
All right, so those are the latest developments as far as Africa is concerned. Of course, a whole lot more on the pages of the newspapers, and we will be taking you through all the dailies in Nigeria in just a moment after this break.
Welcome back. It's still the conversation, and now let's take a look at stories making the front page of the newspapers. We start with the first on our list, The Punch, okay, with a very interesting headline here. It says, bandits first took schoolboys to neighboring villages. Now, these statements coming from residents, of course, talking about the Katsina mass abduction. What are your thoughts, John?
Well, obviously, I do not think it was a planned. When I mean planned, they didn't take their time to put the plan together.
Okay.
I thought from the way I see it, they saw a window and decided to take it, and quickly, because when I look at the report from the response of Major General John Eneche, he said they just hit the school, the kids scampered, and that created an opportunity for them to adopt some of the boys. So what you could get from that is that it wasn't a coordinated attack. So that's why I also concluded that maybe Boko Haram is taking advantage of the fact that, okay, this has happened, let's keep ourselves relevant, let's claim to be the ones who have carried out the attack.
That's right.
But again, this is a major, is a serious thing as it relates to Nigeria's security architecture. Because whether we like it or not, Mr. President was on his homestead soil. Now, at that moment, Katsina should have been the most secured state in Nigeria. You understand? He was in his home state. So if I think that's the question that is going through the minds of so many Nigerians. If this man could be in his home state and under his very nose, the very night he arrives his home state, these people could have access to a school and adopt little boys, then truly the issue of insecurity in Nigeria is absolutely critical.
It is. All right, so let's take a look at all the stories on the Punch newspaper. And I'm starting with the stories at the top, okay, to my very left. It says, fear grips 26 infected generals' aides, COVID-19 positive commands spread. I beg your pardon, I'll take that again. Fear grips 26 infected general aides, COVID-19 positive commanders spread. Okay, talking about COVID-19 in the Nigerian military. Over the weekend, we did hear that, one life was lost there, and others, yesterday, I think about 18 tested positive for COVID-19. So let's move on to the next story. Marketers refuse to obey 5 naira reduction in petrol price. We're talking about petrol price and the reduction by the federal government and the back and forth between the government and the marketers. And so moving on, Electoral College confirms Biden presidential victory. Electoral College confirms Biden's presidential victory, the U.S. election. From there,
no, I mean, the world has stamped, sealed, and delivered the fact
Joe
that
Biden is the winner of the US
president,
elections.
and he has sort of started in a very good in a very good footing. You know, trying to consolidate relationships across board, rebuilding confidence again in America being what the world expects America to be, a powerful nation, always standing for justice, equity, and fairness. And I think what has really surprised the world is the kind of appointments Biden has made
So far.
So far. I mean, making a Nigerian his chief of defense secretary. You know. And of course, there were oppositions that, I mean,
there are still questions going on with that appointment, as well as having a black man, you know, in the Pentagon.
Exactly.
You know, so a lot of questions are being asked. But then Biden is a Democrat, first of all, and yes, an American. So it's only expected that everyone is carried along.
No, he has said he was going to run an inclusive government. He had shown Donald Trump that he would extend a hand of fellowship to the Republicans, and even the Republicans have said it, even during the campaigns in the build-up to the elections, that Biden is that one man they are sure of who can cross the carpet between both divides and bring both sides together.
Well, we'll see how that turns out, and of course, we'll bring you more developments concerning this story and yes, the American elections and the aftermath of that. Okay, so still on the Punch newspapers, let's look at a story at the very top of the newspaper. Fuel imports gulped 700.46 billion naira in 3 months, and that's coming from the NBS. Okay, the year is ending, and we're seeing various financial reports coming out, of course, from the National Bureau of Statistics. Okay, well, that is no surprise. And talking about importing fuel and all of that, refining, and well, that's the reason why the country's, you know, gearing towards being able to refine our fuel here in the country.
Festive and holiday periods are those periods where there's a high consumption of petroleum products, particularly PMS, premium motor spirit, and in the past, it was almost becoming a norm where once it hits December, you would expect
inflation.
Fuel scarcity, you will expect inflation.
Yeah.
I must give it to the Buhari administration. They have tried to ensure that, especially going into the festive seasons, that there is ample supply. And where all of a sudden there are some scare or fear in the market, the marketers are trying to create artificial scarcity. The NNPC, the DPR are quick to come out to dispel any rumor of scarcity and then convince Nigerians that, look, there's enough in reserve to carry through the festive period. In fact, sometimes they go the extra extent of rolling out their calendar to tell you this is how much we have in reserve and this is how long we expect the reserve to carry us through before we get our next consignment. So no panic, don't panic buying. Be rest assured that you're going to have enough petroleum products all through the festive season.
That's a good one. Indeed, we must commend the Buhari-led administration for that. All right, so let's take a look at the next national dailies. This is The Nation, okay? Talking about The Nation newspaper here. Let's start with the story at the very top to my left. 8 more army generals test positive to COVID-19 in addition to 18 that tested positive yesterday, Nigerian military and COVID-19. All right, then moving on. Zenith Bank's GMD Onyegu named Serras CEO of the year. Okay, congrats to him there. And finally, to my very right, soldier killed as gunmen abduct foreigner in Oyo. Federal government ASU talks put off again. Most likely, talking about federal government and ASU, I do not think that we're yet to see a resolve this year.
I have said, until you hear a joint statement. Right now, I think Nigerians are even tired of the ASU. Everybody's just waiting. Oh, ASU, oh, they are still there. Okay.
You can imagine the body language of Nigerians talking about federal government and ASU. Okay, so moving on, and finally on The Nation newspaper, military abducted pupils taken away on motorcycles. Talking about the students that were abducted from the Kankara school in Katsina. Well, sadly, I can imagine what the parents of these kids are going through.
They're horrified. They're in trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, losing your child. In a case, yesterday we brought you a report of a parent who has 3 boys in that school and 2 are missing. So you can imagine that family is in complete hysteria. It's not a state that you would want anybody to be in.
That's right.
Where you don't know where the children are, you don't know whether they are safe, you don't know whether, God forbid, they are alive. So it's not a friendly situation at all.
It's a horrible reminder of what took place years ago. I think 3 years now, or 4 years, if I'm correct. The Chibok girls abduction.
Exactly.
It's a horrible reminder. Okay, so the next is The Guardian. Okay, and with a very gaping headline, as John would say, despair as hoodlums sack security meeting in Kaduna, talking about insecurity in the nation. I mean, well, Nigeria is not going through the best of times when it comes to security. There is a lot that has to be done.
Okay.
A lot has to be done, John.
Maybe I need to bust this bubble. If you check in the last 3 weeks going to 1 month or more, my calculation may not be dead on point, you will find out that the highest insecurity rate has been in the north. And the big question is why? Now, whether the northern leaders in London, Nigeria want to accept it or not, they are their own problem. Because look, as long as you continue to keep your people impoverished, uneducated, unexposed to the best that life and the world has to offer, at a point in time, those people will rebel against you. Anybody who's followed the political history of Nigeria, the North has always created the impression that the South is the reason why they have been so deprived, right? Now, the young Northerners are beginning to realize that, look, the South have their issues too. Their young people too are agitating as well. So it's not the South that is keeping us deprived. It is our leaders that are keeping us deprived. It is because they live in affluence, they live like emperors, while we live in continued abject penury and poverty. I mean, if you look at the level of poverty in the north as against the south, you will find that the level of poverty in the north
is higher. Reports stated it was higher.
Exactly,
than that of the
it's
south.
higher. And it's shocking because they are the ones in power. They control the paraphernalia of government and the apparatus of government. So you would expect that naturally they should enjoy the privileges that comes with controlling or wielding power. But unfortunately, despite every attempt of this administration to improve infrastructure, to improve security, to improve, when the Anchors program started, where did they start to implement it from? In the north. It's not as if there are no places in the south where we can't grow rice. There are. You can grow rice in Akwa Ibom. You can grow rice in Bayelsa. You can grow rice in Rivers State. But it was first done, and the northern states have enjoyed higher privilege to that incentive more than southern states. So again, you wonder why the level of insecurity. It is still the same leaders who, because they have so impoverished this youth, not just financially, but even mentally, educationally, they now use them to become, as thugs and touts, political touts, and then when they are done with them, they displace them.
It's obvious a reawakening is going on in the north, and well, it's just getting started. We're yet to see how far this comes. Now, let's take a look at some very interesting writers under the headline here in the Guardian newspapers. It says, attackers injure participants, cart away valuables, okay? And Masari briefs president on Kankara abduction. We did give you a report yesterday that President Muhammadu Buhari is yet to react because he's waiting for the briefing, talking about the situation or the incidents that took place at Kankara School in Katsina. And also, Sultan queries FG's political will, okay? The Sultan of Sokoto has been very vocal of lately concerning the insecurity in the north. And also, northern elders restate calls for sack of service chiefs. And foreign help, abduction of students, a slap on Buhari's face. Now, this is coming from JN. Also, Northern News calls for restructuring arms for citizens, and UN laments kidnaps of students. Very interesting stories going on Interesting topics here, John.
Is this not enough reason for Mr. President to address the nation? Or is this not enough reason, if he doesn't want to address the nation, to address the National Assembly and spell out what he is doing or what he and his security team are doing to bring insecurity in the country to the barest minimum? And whether he likes it or not, the truth be told, know that this alone is enough to continue to cause the Nigerian economy to crawl and dwindle.
Well, the reports are not attracting investors.
Exactly. Nigeria right now is not an attractive destination to do business. So whether we like it or not, unless he wants to continue his borrowing agenda of continually running to the IMF, the World Bank, the Paris Club, maybe that's what he wants to do. But if this government truly wants to turn things around, as they claim that we will be out of recession on or before the end of the first quarter of 2021, then there has to be some deliberacy or deliberateness in their attempt to quell the issue of insecurity and begin to change the narrative as far as Nigeria is concerned.
All right, let's look at other stories before we leave The Guardian. Now, crisis looms in Ghana as Mahama rejects presidential poll results. Talking about the Ghana election, okay? And Soyinka flames Buhari for failing to speak on insecurity. NMA confirms second coronavirus wave, 6 safer vaccines for Nigerians. NMA confirms second coronavirus wave, 6 safer vaccines for Nigerians. And Army fumigates headquarters as 26 officers test positive for COVID-19. Okay, so moving on, we'll take a look at the Nigerian Tribune. Now, let's start with the stories to my left. And it says 36 states, FCT, recorded 11.7% negative growth in IGR. That's coming from Fayemi. And over to my right, NSAS. NPA lost over 1 billion naira to attack. Now, there's a rider under that story that says to rehabilitate building with 807 million naira, beg your pardon, and over 2,500 business owners affected. Now that's coming from Sanwo-Olu, the Lagos State governor, still counting loss after the NSAS protest.
I had said it, especially when Lagos State came out and said they were going to need, they initially said they needed 700 million. Then later that 700 million shot up to 1 trillion. 1 trillion. Yeah. And we're going to hear all kinds of figures thrown. And let me say this, being half Nigerian, half Ghanaian, right? African, right? Okay. We're going to see a lot of fraud as a result of the aftermath of the NSAS. NPA, I mean, for God's sake, how can you be needing 800 and how many million just to do what? You know, so these are questions that we expect that our honorable members, our distinguished senators will, because that's why we put you there, to probe these things. They're all leakages. In God's holy name, Nigeria is in recession. I mean, there's no money. We have been borrowing. So it only makes common sense that at this point, you begin to plug all leakages. Everywhere there'll be leakages, because I can tell you, let me even ask this question. Where are they going to get that money from?
Well, we'll see how that comes to play, because I'm talking about this figure. Indeed, it is really, really huge. And most likely, we're looking at 2021. And the right question, where would that money come from? Will it be from the budget allocated to Lagos State? John,
Lagos State, for years, has generated the highest internal revenue as far as states
will
are
it be
concerned.
States generated?
I remember
That's another
at
thing.
the point when Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu was governor under the then administration of President Olusegun Obasanjo for almost 8 years, he never collected federal allocation. He was running simply on internally generated revenue from Lagos State. Lagos State has that potential. So for me, what I would rather appreciate from Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu is for him to give us a plan to say, okay, look,
this is how we intend to generate this
exactly.
money.
Currently, we generate X amount of money as internal revenue, and we normally expect XYZ amount from the federation account. But what we're looking at using our internally generated revenue in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 to be able to begin to reconstruct, rebuild some of the damaged infrastructure in the state. And this is how Lagosians will contribute to that infrastructure and then encourage people to pay their taxes. That's what I expect to see, not throwing figures at Lagosians and Nigerians, because when Nigerians see this kind of figures, the notion is that, oh, there's so much money to throw around. But the truth, I mean, former governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi, and former vice president candidate for the PDP, has come out to say consistently, this country doesn't have money. We haven't sold a barrel of oil in the last 3 to 4 months. Oil, if at all we've made any sales, just recently. And the oil, global oil, crude oil market, the body language changed because now vaccines are being rolled out. So there is a sigh of relief that, oh, finally, we could put COVID-19 to, we can nib it in the bud.
That's right.
You understand?
That's right.
And the market, but let's not forget, just yesterday, we reminded our African brothers the fact that the world has moved
away from crude oil.
That's it.
Okay. Further, they're looking at other sources of energy.
Thank you.
So crude oil was actually gradually taking the backbench.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And very soon it's going to slip into oblivion. It's going to be non-existent. So African economies, what's basically is going to happen? Let me give you a glimpse into the future. I've seen the future a bit. All right. Now, what's going to happen? Africa will end up using the oil within itself. So, like as I said the other day, that when President Barack Obama, then President of the United States, said America was no longer going to buy oil, if I was president at that time, I would have said, what markets could we create within Africa? Because Africa does not have the capacity to quickly diversify like we have seen in the Western clime, in Germany, in Europe, in America, in the UK, where they're switching from premium motor spirit to gas. From gas, they switch to electricity. Now you have electric power cars. That's why Tesla is the number one selling. I mean, the guy is the world's richest man now. I hear Musk is about taking over from him, because that's the way of the future. So Africa will still remain in burning carbon emissions and CO2 and all of that. Why? Because we need to use up the reserve and excess crude that we have that we won't be able to sell in another decade.
Well, this is enough for us to begin to think of the way forward, as you rightly said, John. All right, so let's take a look at all the stories on the Nigerian Tribune. And of course, just right under the Nigerian Tribune itself, Zenith GMD emerges CEO of the year as bank wins big at Ceres Award 2020. Congrats to him once more. And Supreme Court swears in 72 new sons. Federal government approves $30 million direct lending to oil service producers. Okay, and finally, the big story. How bandits abducted 333 Katsina schoolboys. Now, this is coming from the defense headquarters. And let's take a look at the stories under that. And it says, 2023, Tinubu's men seek Alafin Olubadan's support, and beside that, WAEC cancels results, bars candidates, schools over exam malpractice, and of course, talking about all the stories on the Nigerian Tribune. COVID-19, Kaduna directs closure of all schools, and customs intercepts 73 guns concealed under bags of rice in Kebbi. And finally, police resume. Police rescue abducted Lebanese in Ibadan. Okay, very interesting stories here. So,
did you notice? Yesterday, when we took the story of the adopted boys from Katsina, presidential spokesman Garba Shehu said only 10 boys possibly
were still in captivity.
Were still in
others
captivity.
Escaped.
But today, military spokesman, army my namesake, Major General John Eneche, says 303 33.
You know, the figures have so far been quite confusing, if I might say. We've
Don't
seen a
forget
lot
the
of-
BBC, when it reported, said over 100 at the time. You know, I was waiting to see the reaction of the Nigerian government.
Well, there's
because-
been none so far.
you know, but and so when the army spokesman said 333, I said, whoa, that's even twice the number, you know, said by the BBC, and miles away from the number suggested by Shehu Garba.
You know, if going back to the story, if we're saying these boys were carted away on motorbikes, you can
Just
imagine
in the number of motorbikes.
Exactly, for 333
Let's look at the rider and 3 boys per bike.
That would still be much, and there's no way this would not.
So you're
attract.
talking about between 30 to 60 bikes.
So why is it difficult for the Nigerian military to trail them? Obviously, because you must have had, you know, eyewitnesses at the time.
A young boy who escaped. The BBC is trending that interview.
Right.
There's a young boy who managed to escape being adopted, and he told the story. In fact, his story is what has shed a whole lot of light as to how it happened and how it was possible for the adopters to capture that number of students.
Anyways, we'll bring you that on the conversation. Okay, so let's move on to Business Day. When you talk about business in Nigeria, the giant of Africa. So let's take a look at what the headlines are saying on Business Day newspaper. Businesses fret as second wave of COVID-19 encircles Nigeria, talking about the second wave of the coronavirus, and not just Nigeria but all over the world. Okay, so the best we can do is to take precaution and stay safe. All right, so Nigeria and others to be impacted as UK halts subsidies for fossil fuel
I was waiting
projects.
for you to read that. That caps the conversation we just had.
Oh, yeah.
And my picture into the future.
Oh, well, that's all we can take on the Business Day, and of course from stories that are on the front page of the national dailies. Over to you, John.
Well, as we did promise at the start of the show, that we will keep you informed, up to speed as far as what is happening, where it's happening, when it happened, and where it will happen. Just trust us to keep our ears to the ground, our searchlight beamed across Africa as we continue to keep you up to speed and create a platform for you to also share your experiences across Africa as far as these developments are concerned. So if you're in South Africa, tell us your experience as far as the COVID-19 COVID-19
right?
restrictions, how it affects you, how it affects the build up to the holiday and festive seasons in South Africa. And then if you're in Kenya, tell me, how do you feel knowing that the government has been able to make arrangements for 24 million COVID-19 vaccines? Just 20% of the population is going to get it. And I hear that the frontline workers will be the first to get vaccinated once those vaccines hit Kenya. So share your experience with us. Don't forget, we are live and interactive on all our social media platforms. All you need to do, we're just a click away.
That's right. I'll give you our social media platforms right now. Social media handles, beg your pardon, at TOS TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, TOS TV Network. You could also visit the website with just a click, www.tostvnetwork.com, for more updates.
All right, we'll take a break, and when we come back, it's time to take you through the most trending stories on social media. And Steph kind of gave me a hint. We're going Uganda-wise.
Oh, yes. A lot happening in Kampala.
We're going to be bringing you what's the latest from Uganda. So if you're in Uganda, you just might have the opportunity, to share with us your experience as far as these trending stories are concerned. That will be after this break. right, it's still the conversation on TOS TV network, your digital first Pan-African network. And it's time for us to see the trending stories, or the stories that are trending on social media. Steph?
All right, that's right. Let's take a look at our first tweet. I did mention that Uganda is leading the trends, and we've got this one from Business Insider Africa, and it says 2 Nigerian musicians, Omalay and Thames, have been charged to court for flouting COVID-19 guidelines in Uganda. What are your thoughts, John?
Well, it's an interesting development, I must say. I'm a bit taken aback. Because Uganda has been in the news quite of late. We have probably been following
the Bobby Wine story.
Exactly. Bobby has become a friend of the house.
Well, he did say something about this, which I will bring to you shortly. So let's take a look at our second tweet, still from the Uganda trends, and this is from Bizo Osikoya, and it says Nigerian artists definitely boycotting #MTV Mama 2021 in Uganda. Okay, so news has it that there's an award coming up, MTV Awards coming up in Kampala, Uganda. But looking at what has just happened to 2 Nigerian artists in Uganda, most definitely Nigerian artists are going to have to boycott that, because we've seen reactions all over social media from Nigerian celebrities, and they've been condemning the action taken by the Uganda police, arresting these artists for flouting COVID-19 protocols.
Yeah, but let's be straight with this. A spade is a spade. They broke the rule. They broke the law. So okay, let me put it this way. If you can't do the time, then don't do the crime. It's as simple as that. All across the world, all across Africa. Look, if at the wake of the COVID-19 lockdown in March, April, thereabout, Jennifer Funke Akindele, popularly known as Jennifer, held a birthday party for her husband in their apartment and invited friends for that party. And then the mistake she made, would I call it a mistake? Well, mistake she made was to
on social
post the video of that party on social media. The Lagos state government went after her. She faced the what do they call them? The mobile court. She was penalized, and she admitted she accepted her fault, and she did community service. You understand? She and almost everybody who was identified in that video, also went through that. So if in Nigeria we have that, and I know that all across Africa there are COVID-19 restrictions, because African countries are doing the best they can to keep COVID-19 the best they can at bay. So if Nigerian, whether they are Nigerian artists or not, I mean, I came across a story by a Ugandan artist who lashed out at all the Nigerian artists who came and said they who are Ugandan artists, they've been on lockdown for months. They've not had any means of livelihood. They've not been able to do any performances because of the COVID-19 restrictions. And then you just breeze into their country, break all the rules, and expect not to pay a price. It's not possible.
Well, that's well said.
It's not possible.
That's
so
well
if
said.
Nigerian artists, on the account of, because a Nigerian artist was held accountable for his actions or their actions for breaking COVID-19 rules, and they now want to make a mountain out of a molehill after, then shame on them. I'm sorry, because they should be more responsible. If I were them, I would reprimand my colleague and say, you shouldn't have done that.
Well, they've been blaming the organizers of this concert, saying you're Ugandans and you know the laws. Okay, so you should have waited to invite the artist at the right time.
It is easy to always blame the other person. Don't forget, African proverb. Or you point one finger, other four pointing back at you. The artists that went, didn't they know there were restrictions?
I think these questions would have been asked by the management, of course. All right, I did mention that Bobby Wine spoke about the arrest of 2 Nigerian celebrities, and this is what he has to say. Of course, this tweet is coming from his verified handle, also identified as His Excellency Bobby Wine on Twitter. Now, here's what he had to say about that. He said, "Truth is, hashtag Omale's arrest isn't about COVID. No, it's an act of shame by a corrupt regime that operates on double standards. He obtained a work permit and performed under police protection. Why arrest him? This as pro-Museveni artists stage street concerts unmolested. Hashtag free Omale." Now that's coming from Bobby Wine.
Now, Bobby Wine has brought a different angle. He got a work permit. Who would have issued him a work permit when they know there are COVID-19 restrictions?
And he said he was protected by the police while he performed on stage.
Now,
so the police is supposed to be aware.
I can also tell you what the reaction of the Ugandan government will be that that's a political statement.
Well, it looks like. Well, anyways, coming from Bobby Wine, what are you supposed to expect? All right, so let's take a look at our next trend, and of course, Somalia is trending on Twitter specifically. Now, there's a tweet from Rachel Akidi, a verified handle, and this one reads: Somalia has cut diplomatic ties with Kenya, citing Kenya's meddling in its affairs. It has recalled its diplomats from Nairobi and given Kenyan diplomats in Mogadishu 7 days to leave the country. And this comes after a visit by Somalia's lands president to Nairobi. And that's a recap of news from BBC right there.
Yeah.
Well, we did say that the relationship between Somalia and Kenya is heightened tension at the moment.
Well, at this point, I have very high confidence in the ability of the president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, to find a workable solution to this. He has been quiet about this whole thing. I've followed developments in Kenya since Somalia started this, and the Kenyan government, if you notice, have not come out with any statement. They've not come out with a position, you know. And I think if you follow, for those of us who followed Uhuru Kenyatta since he became president, he is a very cerebral kind of guy. So I think he is looking at a workable solution to this position. But till then, let's see what Kenya's reaction would be with this development from Somalia.
All right, let's take a look at our final tweet, and this is coming from Lord Abraham Mutai. It says, the president of Somalia has given Kenyan diplomats 7 days to leave Mogadishu, but the president of Somalia is issuing that order from his home in Lavington, Nairobi. How do you have a traitor and an enemy investing and living in Kenya? This is unacceptable. Hashtag Somalia farts. Well,
different side to the story.
Exactly. Anyways, that's all we can give right now and right here on this edition of The Conversation for what's trending on social media.
Well, that gradually brings us to the end of this edition of The Conversation. But again, before we leave, controversial John speaking now. Somalia, Kenya, Nigeria, Africa, there is the need for us to come to terms with the reality of the times in which we find ourselves. The world as a whole is facing probably the most deadly pandemic ever. This is not the time where we should play politics. This is not a time where we should have power tussles, especially as it concerns the lives of our brothers and our sisters. So, again, the question remains. It begs for an answer, and it is a question that revolves all across Africa. Jimmy Cliff has asked that question. Late Peter Touch has asked that question. Even Bob Marley has asked that question. What is the life of an African? What? If you are able to ponder on that question, and then you come to the understanding that you're left with two choices, either to be human or to be humane, And to be humane means to be your fellow African brother's keeper. Then we will begin to add value to the life of Africa and Africans. That's the end of this edition of The Conversation. See you tomorrow.
Bye for now.